Hey everyone, welcome to Listen In With Lindsey. I'm Lindsey, and today is different. I've been staring at this screen into the abyss for about, I don't know, 10 minutes before hitting record because I'm about to do something that honestly terrifies me. I'm about to say out loud on the internet for anyone to hear the thing I've been carrying in my heart since I was, I don't know, 5 years old. I want to voice a Disney princess. There, I said it. Listen in with Lindsey. But not just any princess, though. Yeah. I want to voice a Disney feature film animated princess, the kind that gets the castle logo, the theatrical release, the soundtrack that goes platinum, the costume that every little girl in the world puts on. That princess. And I know how that sounds. I know there are probably 100,000 bajillion voice actresses who want that exact same thing. I know the odds. I've been in this industry for over a decade. Trust me, I understand exactly how wild this sounds. But here's the thing. I'm not just wishing on a star here. I have a plan. I have the training. I have the voice. And I have something else, something I've been developing for years that, well, the idea has been in my head for close to 15 years, and I've been working on it for years. Okay, I'll get to that. I'll get to all of that. But first, let me take you back to where this all started. So I'm about to date myself, but I grew up watching Disney movies on repeat, like VHS tapes worn out, tracking lines across the screen, rewind and play again kind of repeat. And my favorites were always the princesses: Pocahontas, Ariel, Belle, Jasmine. And here's the thing about those movies. I didn't just love them, I was studying them without even realizing it. I was obsessed with what made those voices feel like magic. Pocahontas was one with nature. Mulan was a warrior. Ariel sounded like freedom. Belle was full of curiosity. Jasmine sounded like someone who refused to be contained. Each one of them had a voice that was the character, that made you feel the story without even seeing the screen. Know what I mean? And I'd listen to these princesses sing, and I was thinking, how is she doing that with her voice? How does that melody make me feel this way? What would this sound like if I dared to dive into a character of my very own? Because as a voice actress, I think about voice first always. The actual sound, the placement, the rhythm of the words. And you know what fascinated me even as a kid was that each princess had a completely distinct vocal identity. Snow White's lightness is nothing like Ariel's belt. Belle's warmth is nothing like Jasmine's edge. And every single one of these women made specific vocal choices that defined who that character was. That's what lit the fire in me, not just wanting to be a Disney princess, wanting to understand the craft of it, wanting to master the art of building a character through voice alone. I remember sitting on the carpet in our living room, bare feet, pajamas, and I would sing along to Just Around the River Bend with everything I had. Full chest voice, eyes closed, hands in the air, and my mom would peek around the corner and just watch me. She never interrupted. She just let me have my moment, although the rule no singing at the kitchen table was made specifically for me. Sorry, not sorry. And one day, I don't even remember how old I was, maybe 7 or 8. I looked at the TV and I thought to myself, that's going to be me one day. I'm going to be inside that TV. I'm going to be the voice that makes some little girl out there feel what I feel right now. That thought never really left, not once, through elementary school, middle school, high school, through college, through moving across the country, through 10 years of grinding in one of the toughest markets in the world. That thought has been sitting in my chest like a heartbeat, constant, unavoidable. And look, I tried to talk myself out of it multiple times. In high school, I thought, okay, maybe I'll be a journalist. In college, I thought maybe I should be practical, get a real job. Every time someone told me that entertainment was, I don't know, too competitive, too uncertain, too brutal, I'd nod and think, they're probably right. And yeah, they are right. But you know what? Every day is something new. The dream in me wouldn't die. It kept showing up in the shower, when I'd practice character voices at karaoke, when I'd pick a whole new world. Every single time, in the way my entire body would light up whenever I heard about a new animation movie in development, in production, etc. So eventually I stopped fighting it. I stopped pretending I wanted something else, and I moved to California to pursue this. That was over 10 years ago now. And every single day since then, in one way or another, I've been working toward this very moment, toward saying this out loud, toward telling you and telling the world and telling whatever Disney executive might somehow hear this. Hey, you never know, right? Yeah, I want to voice a Disney princess, and I've spent my entire adult life making sure I'd be ready when the opportunity comes. Okay, so let me properly introduce myself for anyone who's new here. My name is Lindsey. I'm an award-winning bilingual voice actress and singer based in Los Angeles, California. I've been doing this professionally for over 10 years. And when I say doing this, I mean really doing this, not dabbling, not I took a class once. I mean, I packed up my life and moved to California specifically to chase voice acting for animation. That was the mission. That's always been the mission. And you know, when I'm on a mission, I'm on a mission. Along the way, I've been incredibly fortunate. I voiced characters for Netflix. I've voiced characters for Netflix. Can I say it out loud or what? I voiced 5 different characters on Caillou for Wild Brain. All of those are in Spanish. I've won awards, Telly Awards, Intercontinental Music Awards. Some of the awards I've won for children's songs that I wrote and performed and produced, helped produce. I've been nominated for countless others. I've trained at Fang Zoom, which if you're in this industry, you know that's one of the top studios for anime dubbing in the country. I've studied with the voice of Jimmy Neutron, my first teacher in the industry, actually. I've worked and trained with some of the most respected coaches in the business. I'm a singer, mezzo-soprano to soprano with years of musical theater training. I'm a songwriter. I created a children's IP, which is intellectual property, called Gigi and the Giggle Stamp. That's won awards. And oh yeah, I'm a first degree black belt in Taekwondo because apparently I have this thing about not quitting until I master something. Crazy, right? And you know what? Actually, let me talk to you about Taekwondo for a second because it is relevant. Getting a black belt takes years of training. And there are so many moments during that process where you want to quit, where your body hurts, where you're frustrated or just busy, where you feel like you're not improving fast enough, where everyone around you seems to be advancing while you're stuck in place on the same form for, maybe like the 3rd month in a row. But you know what? You don't quit. You show up to the class, you practice, you compete, you fail, you get back up, and eventually one day you're standing in front of your master instructor and he's, tying a black belt around your waist and you realize something. Hey, I did it. Not because I was the most naturally gifted person in the room, but because I refused to stop. I never quit on myself. That's the same energy I bring to this whole voice acting thing. That's the same energy I'm bringing to Project Princess. I am not the most connected person in Hollywood. I don't have a famous family. I didn't go to some exclusive performing arts school, but I do have something that's gotten me this far. And you know what? I do believe it will get me further. I don't quit. The thing I'm most excited to bring to this, the thing that makes my approach different from most people studying Disney princesses, is that I do have a plan. Yes, a plan, a vision. So when I say I want to voice a Disney princess, I'm not just dreaming. I'm a voice actress who spent a decade building a very specific set of tools, and I want to study the masters to understand exactly how to use them. Cool, right? Now, if you've been with me on this channel for a while, you know I love cartoons. I love singing and I love talking to you guys. I sat down at this microphone and talked about the things that I love. Disney characters, anime, performances, song covers, voice acting techniques, story structure, character development. I've analyzed Elsa's vocal placement. I've broken down why Studio Ghibli movies are the best. I've sung Disney covers and anime openings and original songs. This channel has been my creative playground and my training ground for a few years now, trying to, put myself out there. And you know what? That gives you reps. It does give you reps, just like my black belt training, just like the hundreds of auditions I've done. You show up, you do the work, you get better. Episode 1 of this podcast, Listen In With Lindsey, my pacing was all over the place. I was nervous, but I found my rhythm eventually. I got confident behind the mic, and bit by bit, I began to find myself. It's kind of cool. That's not by accident, though. That's what 10 years of daily practice looks like. But you know what? I've never done this before. I've never centered an entire series around my actual career goal. I've never been this transparent about what I'm chasing and why. And honestly, that's been by design. In this industry, you're told to play it cool. Don't be too eager. Don't show your hand. Wait to be chosen. I am done waiting to be chosen. Yes, I've decided. I'm done. Here's what I've learned about, after 10 years in this business. Talent matters, training matters, but you know what else matters? Being impossible to ignore. The people who book the biggest roles in animation aren't always the most talented people in the room. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're incredibly gifted performers who also happen to be incredibly visible. They have followings, they have communities, and I'm not knocking them. That takes work to build. They have people who care about their journey. They've built something that a casting director or a studio executive can look and say, oh, she already has an audience that cares about this. She already has momentum. And I've been building this for years. I just haven't pointed all of it in one direction yet. Until now. Let me tell you something about being in this industry for a decade. You learn things that no class teaches you. You learn that talent is the baseline, not the finish line. You learn that the most talented person in the room doesn't always book the job. You learn that relationships matter more than almost anything. You learn that timing is real and luck is real, but preparation is what makes luck possible. That saying, when preparation meets opportunity. You also learn about rejection. Oh man, do you learn about rejection? It's a cruel mistress. I won't go into all the details because some of it is still raw, but I've been passed over for roles I was perfect for. My opinion, I've been told no by agencies that I admired. I've watched opportunities slip away because of timing or union status or just the randomness of this business. And every single time I had a choice, let it break me or let it build me. I chose to let it build me every time, not because I'm some superhuman who doesn't feel pain. Trust me, I feel it. I feel every rejection in my chest. I go home and I process it, and sometimes I cry, but then I get up the next day and I train harder. I make my demos better. I take another class. I book another session. I write another song. Because here's what rejection has taught me that really nothing else could. The people who make it in this industry, they aren't the ones who never got rejected. They're the ones who got rejected and kept going. Demi Moore was rejected from over 50 auditions before she booked her first role. Jodie Benson, the voice of Ariel from The Little Mermaid, was doing smaller theater gigs for years before Howard Ashman called her in. None of these stories are, she waltzed on in and immediately got the part. They're all stories of persistence. And something I've realized about myself? I've got persistence in spades. So here's what we're doing. Welcome to Project Princess. Project Princess is a 20-episode series right here on Listen In With Lindsey. And in this series, I'm going to do something that I don't think anyone has done quite like this before. I'm going to deep dive into every single official Disney princess, one by one, episode by episode. And I'm not just going to talk about why I like them or rank them in a tier list. We're going way, way, way deeper than that. For each princess, I'm going to analyze certain things, and I'm going to tell you about it. The voice performance itself. How did the actress bring this specific character to life? What vocal techniques did she use? What choice did she make that defined the character itself? Okay, so the character construction is another thing we're going to talk about. How was the princess written? What makes her tick? What's her character arc? What's her flaw? What makes her work as a character in itself? The music. How do the songs serve the story? How do they reveal character? What's happening vocally in those performances that you might not notice on a casual listen? The cultural moment. What was happening in the world and at Disney when this film came out? How did the context shape the character? What did she mean to audiences then versus now? And then my favorite part, the casting. How did this actress get the role? What was the audition process like? When did the filmmakers say, or what did the filmmakers say they were looking for? And what can we learn from that, about how decisions are made in general during the casting process? Does that make sense? I want to reverse engineer what makes a Disney princess work, from Snow White in 1937 all the way to the present day. I want to understand the formula, the patterns, the evolution, because I'm building my own princess story. And I want to learn from the masters. I want to know exactly what makes these characters last for decades when, thousands of other animated characters are simply forgotten. And here's something that I think is really special about what we're doing. Most people who talk about Disney princesses talk about them as fans. And that's great. I love fan content. I'm a fan, duh. But I'm also coming at this as a professional voice actress. I know what it takes to stand in a recording booth for 4 hours and maintain a character voice. I know what it feels like to do 47 takes on one line until the director gets what they need. I know the difference between a voice that sounds good on a demo reel and a voice that can sustain a 90-minute feature film performance with the emotional range, the comedic timing, the vulnerability, and the power all necessary to make that character work. That's what I, myself, am going to bring to each analysis. Not just, I like this character, but hear specifically what this actress is doing with her instrument that makes the performance work. And here's how I would approach it as a performer myself. I might even do some live demonstrations. Maybe. We'll see how I feel, my bravery levels. I'll show you what I mean by vocal placement. I'll break down the differences between head voice and chest voice and where each princess lives in her range. I'll show you how Disney princess voices have evolved from pure classical soprano to the early years to the more conventional belt forward sounds of the modern era. And yes, at some point, I may just sing for you. Maybe, no promises. Because what's the point of having a voice if you don't use it? But we'll see how brave I feel, okay? No promises. And here's the part that makes this different from just another analysis series. I'm doing this publicly on purpose, and I'm framing it as a question. Can a voice actress who truly understands this art form, who's studied it for a decade, who can demonstrate her knowledge and her ability publicly, actually build momentum from the outside in? It's kind of like a social experiment, if you will. Okay, because the traditional path to voicing a Disney princess, from what I see, looks a little something like this. You get a top-tier agent at a place like CESD or Atlas or DDO. Your agent gets you in the room for the audition. You audition alongside hundreds of other incredibly talented women. You get callbacks again. Maybe you do a screen test. And then, if the stars align, you book the role. It's beautiful. That's the path, and it's valid, and I'm pursuing it. Let me tell you, I'm pursuing it. But I'm also asking, what if you demonstrated such a deep understanding of what makes these stories work? Such a clear vocal ability, such specific expertise in the craft of princess storytelling that you become impossible to overlook? What if instead of just waiting for the audition, you showed the world exactly what you know and what you can do? I'm excited to see what happens. What if the body of work you created was the audition? That's Project Princess in a nutshell. It's a deep dive into Disney's greatest characters, and it's a social experiment, like I said, about whether demonstrated expertise, genuine passion, and a deep understanding of craft can actually move the needle in an industry that loves to tell you to wait your turn. And I want to be clear, I'm not bitter about how the industry works. I get it. Studios are businesses at the end of the day. They make safe bets. They hire people they know. They are doing what they need to do. There are gatekeepers and systems and hierarchies that exist for reasons. I'm not here to burn anything down. I'm here to build something up. I'm here to create so much value, so much content, so much evidence of what I can do that the safe bet eventually becomes me. That's not entitlement. That's strategy, my friends. Look, I want to be really honest about something. This isn't just about me getting a job. I mean, yes, obviously, I want both this. I've wanted it my entire life, but it's bigger than that. I think about all the kids right now who are in the same position I was in at 5 years old, sitting in front of their TV, in front of their, I guess, iPad today, watching Disney movies and falling in love with these characters. And what I've realized after studying these films for years is that the ones that last, the ones that make an impression, the ones that become generational, well, they are the ones with the strongest stories, the strongest character writing, the most specific, most emotionally true vocal performances. Can I speak? And there are still so many great stories that haven't been told. Not because they don't exist, but because nobody's figured out how to tell them yet in this medium. There are legends and myths and histories around the world that are dramatic, emotional, made for animation. And they've been waiting for someone who understands the craft well enough to bring them to the screen. Or at least that's what I tell myself. That's what I believe to my core. And I know this because I've been writing one. Yeah, I have. It's taken a lot out of me, but I'm doing it. Okay, you twisted my arm. I'm going to tease something here, and I need you to bear with me because I can't tell you everything, not yet. But I want you to know that Project Princess isn't just analysis and aspiration. There's something behind it. I've been developing an original animated feature film project for years, and it's specifically a princess story, one with an incredible narrative hook that I genuinely can't believe hasn't been made into a film yet. It's based on a legend that is known by over 130 million people, a love story that's been passed down for 700 years, a story that involves an actual princess from a real civilization with mountains named after the lovers, with a legacy that spans centuries. And no one has made it into a feature film. Ever. Not once. Until today. When Coco came out in 2017 and made over 800 million worldwide, it proved that a great story, well told, can do massive numbers regardless of what culture it comes from. When Flow turned a $3.7 million budget into a $50 million profit and won an Oscar, it proved you don't need 200 million to make something that resonates to the people. I've been watching, I've been paying attention, and I've been writing, I've been creating. This project has original songs, 7 of them. It's designed as a dual language film, English and Spanish, because that's what the world that these characters live in that I'm creating. And the princess at the center of it, she's not a damsel, not completely. She's not waiting to be rescued. Not for the entire story. She's a coming of age warrior with an impossible choice who is discovering all of the different aspects of her personality that make up who she is. And her story has the emotional stakes, the spectacle, and the musical potential to stand next to the best Disney has ever made. That's all I can say for now, but trust me when I tell you, I'm not just talking about wanting to voice a Disney princess. I'm building one. And everything I'm studying in this series, every craft, every choice I break down, it's feeding directly into making that story as strong as it can possibly be. And I will say this, there's a moment later in the series where I'm going to reveal more when the time is right, when the pieces are in place. I'm going to share more details about this project, the songs, the story, the vision, because part of what Project Princess is building towards, part of what it's showing, not just telling, is basically what I'm capable of. But for now, just know that when I say I have something special, I mean it. This isn't a shower thought. This isn't, just a fluke. This is years of research development, writing, and composing. This is a fully conceived world with characters, a storyline, a mythology, and music that I've poured my heart and soul into. And the legend at the center of it, it's not obscure. It's not something I had to dig through ancient texts to find. It's something that over 130 million people already know. They tell it to their children. They visit the mountains named after the main characters, the lovers. It has everything a great animated film needs. A love story, a villain, sacrifice, spectacle, music, and an ending that will get you in the best possible way. And it has never been a feature film. Like, what are we talking about? That's the kind of untold story that deserves this. The craft, the attention that Disney puts into their best work. And I intend to be the one who brings it to life. Yes, some heroes don't wear capes. Okay, so let me lay out the next 19 episodes. Here's what they're going to look like, because I want you to know exactly what you're signing up for. Each episode is going to be a full deep dive. We're talking for about, I would say up to an hour or more, maybe. It's going to be princess content. I'm going to bring my voice acting expertise, my musical training, my songwriter brain, my years of industry experience, and honestly, just my genuine lifelong obsession with these characters to this project. Episode 2 is going to be Snow White, the one that started it all. Adriana Caselotti was 18 years old when she was chosen to voice Snow White, and the story of how she got that role is absolutely wild. Walt Disney literally heard her voice through a door and said, that's her. That's the one. And the contract she signed, it prevented her from using her voice professionally for the rest of her life. We're going to talk about it. All of it. Trust and believe. Then we'll move through the eras, the classic era with Cinderella and Aurora / Sleeping Beauty, the Renaissance that changed everything with Ariel, Belle, Jasmine, Pocahontas, and Mulan, the, revival era with Rapunzel, Merida, Moana, and Mirabelle. I'm going to track how the definition of princess evolved, how the vocal performances changed, how the music became more complex, how the storytelling got bolder and more specific with each generation that passed. And throughout all of it, I'm going to be connecting it back to the bigger questions. What does Disney look for in a princess voice? How have those criteria, changed over the decades? What opportunities exist right now for the next princess? And where do I fit into that picture? I don't know. I'm also going to talk candidly about the business side, how casting works for these roles, what agents and managers do behind the scenes, the difference between being SAG-AFTRA and non-union, and how that affects your access, the politics of it, the frustrations of it, the moments where the door cracks open just enough to give you a little slither of hope. This isn't going to be a fairy tale about the industry. It's going to be real, because I think the people who watch this deserve to know what it actually takes. And I think the transparency is part of what makes this different. And you know what? It also gives you a deeper appreciation for the people that do manage to break through and create something impactful and meaningful to the world, because it's not easy. It really isn't. Let me give you a little more detail on what's coming so you can get excited with me. After Snow White in episode 2, we'll move to Cinderella in episode 3. Eileen Woods was the voice of Cinderella, and she didn't even know she was auditioning for the film when she recorded the songs. Crazy, right? Her friends submitted her recordings to Walt Disney without telling her. Can you imagine getting that phone call? Hey, so remember those songs you sang at the party? Yeah, Disney. Walt Disney wants you. Episode 4 will be Aurora from Sleeping Beauty. Mary Costa was 18 when she was cast, and she had to wait 3 years before the film came out. Yeah, so much went into that movie. It's aesthetically beautiful. Her vocal performance is stunning, operatic in a way we haven't heard from a Disney princess since. And the fact that Aurora only has 18 lines of dialogue in the entire film, that's fascinating. It is a fascinating challenge. Although now that I think about it, it's maybe because she was sleeping most of the time, Sleeping Beauty. But how do you create an iconic character with 18 lines? Then we hit the Renaissance era. Ariel, Belle, Jasmine. This is where Disney figured out that the princesses needed to be, active, not passive. That she needed a goal, an arc, an internal conflict, and the vocal performances shifted completely. Jodie Benson, Paige O'Hara, Leah Salonga, oh my God, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but the beautiful woman who sings all the beautiful Broadway songs, their Broadway chops in the recording booth, it changed everything about what a princess voice could be. Yes, I love those actresses. We'll also cover Pocahontas and Mulan, where Disney started experimenting with grounding princess stories in specific historical and cultural settings. And we'll talk about what worked and what didn't from a storytelling craft perspective. Tiana, where Anika Noni Rose delivered one of the most technically demanding vocal performances in the entire lineup. Pure Broadway powerhouse in a recording booth. Rapunzel, where Mandy Moore brought a pop vocal sensibility that signaled a new era. Moana, where Auli Cravalho made her entire film debut as a 16-year-old and absolutely crushed it. Inspiring. And Mirabelle from Encanto, who is technically not a princess in the official lineup, but who I'd argue is one of the most interesting characters Disney has ever written from a craft perspective. Stephanie Beatrice's vocal performance in that role is fascinating because it's the most naturalistic, the most conversational princess voice Disney has ever done. And the way Lin-Manuel Miranda's songs function as character development and plot simultaneously, yeah, we're going to spend a lot of time on that one. Because didn't he also do Moana songs too? I believe so. Each episode is going to be research heavy, performance focused, and deeply personal. And I'm not just analyzing these characters from the outside. I'm analyzing them as someone who wants to join their ranks. Lord in heaven, please. And that gives this whole thing a different energy than your typical review or ranking video. But I'm not bringing desperate vibes. Oh no. Can I be honest with you for a second? I almost didn't make this episode. Yeah, I wrote the outline 3 times and deleted it. I recorded the first 5 minutes once before, about like a month ago, and then listened back and I trashed it because I sounded too rehearsed, too polished, too podcastery. I didn't sound like me. I sounded like someone performing vulnerability instead of actually being vulnerable. So what you're hearing right now is me, just me, talking about what I love. My outline, my heart, and what I bring to the table. And that's scary. Recording this episode is one of the hardest things I've done in a long time. And not because the content is difficult, but because saying I want to voice a Disney princess publicly feels like painting a target on my back. What if it doesn't happen? Yeah. What if I put this whole series out into the world and 3 years from now, I'm still in the same place as where I am today? Wouldn't that just be embarrassing? Wouldn't people look at this episode and think, aw, that's cute. She really thought she could do it. She really thought she could be somebody, huh? But you know what? Maybe, just maybe, some people will think that. And that's fine. But you know what I've decided? I'd rather be the person who tried publicly than the person who dreamed privately and never did anything about it. I'd rather put my flag in the ground right here, right now, and say, this is what I'm going after. This is what I want. Watch me work. Because either this works and it becomes the most incredible story, or it doesn't work. And I've still spent time creating content that I'm actually passionate about, analyzing characters that I care about, that I love, building a community of people who care about animation and voice acting and great storytelling, and sharpening my own craft in the entire process. There is literally no downside to trying. The only downside is silence. And let me tell you something else. I've been in martial arts for years, in Taekwondo. There's something to be said about having an indomitable spirit. It means you never give up. No matter how impossible the odds seem, you face the challenge. You accept that it might be bigger than you, that it probably will be bigger than you, and you step forward anyway. You are brave. That's what I'm doing here. This is my indomitable spirit. It's me stepping onto the mat against an opponent that's 10 times my size and saying, I'm here, let's do this. Because the alternative is going home. And I didn't move to California to go home. Hello, let's get real. All right. Let me talk for a minute about why I think the timing is right for this and why I think I'm not crazy for believing I could actually do this. Here's something I've noticed studying these films. The best Disney princess movies aren't just good animation with good songs. They're stories where every element, the voice performance, the music, the dialogue, the world building, all work together to create something specific and emotionally true. The more specific the story, the more universal it feels. Coco is incredibly specific to Mexican culture, and it made 800 million worldwide. Moana is incredibly specific to Polynesian culture, and it became a global phenomenon. Specifically and specificity is what makes great stories resonate. And what I've been developing for years, is a story that uses culture, fantasy, love, self-discovery as storytelling tools, not as a checkbox, as a narrative device. And I know how that sounds. Confident, maybe even bold. But I've spent 10 years developing this voice, this range, the ability, the singing technique, the character work. At some point, you have to stop being humble and start being honest about what you bring to the table. Here's the other thing. When I study a Disney princess vocal performance, I'm hearing things that, other people, other analysts can't hear. I'm hearing where a character's rhythm comes from. I'm hearing how the songwriters are using vowel sounds to create emotion. I'm hearing the micro choices in inflection that separate a good performance from an iconic one. My ear gives me a frame of reference for how voice creates character. And that perspective is what I'm going to bring to every episode of this series. I genuinely, truly believe that by the time this series is done, you'll hear these princesses differently than you maybe do today or did before. Because I'm going to show you what is happening under the surface, underneath it all. So let me just lay my cards out. Here's what I offer that most voice actresses, as talented as they are, simply don't have in one package. Singing ability across the full vocal range needed for a Disney princess. Mezzo-soprano to soprano. Musical theater trained. I can belt, I can do legit soprano, I can do the intimate emotional ballad, I can do the comedic patter song. The Disney princess, they sing. That's non-negotiable. And I don't just sing, I write songs. I understand music from the inside. Character voice range. I've voiced 5 different characters on a single show. I can go from sweet heroine to comedic sidekick to villain to quirky best friend. That versatility means I'm not a one-note performer. I can find the specific voice a character needs. Industry training at the highest level. I've trained with the best of the best. Casting directors and agent workshops, veteran voice coaches. Those aren't YouTube tutorials. I mean, no offense, I'm on YouTube, but they are very niche specific. These are the people who cast and direct the shows you watch. They've trained me in the specific skills that professional animation requires. A creator's brain. I don't just perform, I write, I develop characters. I understand story structure, character arcs, emotional beats. When I step into a recording booth, I understand the larger picture of what the story needs from me. Directors love that because it means that, there's fewer takes and more of a collaborative energy. This podcast, countless episodes made with love for you, demonstrating my passion for, all of this, the knowledge of this exact world. No one can question whether I'm serious about Disney animation. The receipts are pretty public. And lastly, I've already built the princess. Yes, I have. I'm very proud. I keep coming back to this, I know, but it's important because most people who want to voice a Disney princess are hoping Disney will create one they fit. I'm doing it the other way around. I'm creating a princess, a film, a world, and bringing it to the table fully formed. That's different. That changes the conversation entirely. Because think about how some of the biggest animated films of the last decade came to be. Lee Unkrich spent years researching Mexican culture before pitching Coco. Jennifer Lee completely rewrote Frozen from scratch because she believed in the sisterhood story. Byron Howard pitched Zootopia as a spy movie before it evolved into what it became. These projects take years of development. They take someone who's obsessed, who can't stop thinking about it, who eats, sleeps, and breathes the world they're building, right? I'm that person for my project. I've been living inside this story for years, and that kind of obsessive dedication, that's what turns ideas into movies. So here's what the next few months are going to look like. Every episode of Project Princess, I'm going to do a deep dive on one princess. We'll unpack the movie, we'll go over the soundtrack, we'll research the casting, we'll look at the cultural moment, and we'll talk about what we can learn. But between the analysis, I'm also going to be documenting my own journey, the auditions I'm going to, the connections I'm making, the doors that open and the doors that stay closed, the wins and the losses, all of it in all of its full glory. Because here's what I believe. The process of pursuing a dream is just as valuable as achieving it. And I think there are people out there, creative people, dreamers, voice actors, singers, writers, anyone who's been told their dream is too big, who need to see someone, go for it in real time. Not a success story, not even a success story told in retrospect, not a here's how I made it narrative, but here's me in the middle of it, not knowing how it ends. That type of story. That's what this is in a nutshell. And, honestly, I think that's what makes this more compelling because I genuinely don't know how this ends. I don't know if Disney is going to call. I don't know if my film project is going to get made, although you can bet your bottom dollar that I will do everything in my power to make it possible, to make it happen. I don't know if this series of Project Princess is going to catch fire or if 12 people are going to watch it. But here is what I know. I'm going to show up every single episode with everything I've got. And I know that at the end of the series, whether or not, the dreams come true, I'll be able to look at myself and say, I went for it. I held nothing back. And I built something real in the process of it all. I think that's enough for me. And I think it might be enough for you too. At least I hope. Before we wrap this on up, I want to be really clear about who I'm making this for because I think Project Princess speaks to a few different audiences. First, if you're a Disney fan, if you love these characters, these movies, these songs, and you want to hear someone, break them down with genuine expertise and passion, not just surface level takes, but real vocal analysis, real industry context, real deep research into the casting stories and the creative decisions, this is for you. I'm going to bring you things about these princesses that you've never heard before, or maybe you've heard several times over, depending how big a fan you are. We may have some similar interests, you never know. Second, if you're a voice actor, if you're chasing your own dream in this industry, whether it's Disney or Nickelodeon or anime or video games or commercials, if you've been grinding and wondering if it's ever going to pay off, if the work you're putting in is leading anywhere, I want you to walk alongside me. I want you to see that you're not alone. And I want to give you real actionable insight into how this industry works from someone who's inside it. Third, if you're a storyteller, if you write, if you create, if you're building something of your very own, I'm going to be breaking down the narrative architecture of these films in a way that's useful for anyone making character-driven stories. What works, what doesn't, and why the best princess films are the ones that took the biggest creative risks. Let that be a lesson to all of you. And fourth, honestly, if you're an industry professional, a casting director, a producer, a development executive, someone at Disney or any animation studio who makes decisions about who gets to tell these stories, I'm making this for you too, not to perform for you, although, but to show you what I bring to the table, to demonstrate episode after episode that I understand this world as deeply as anyone alive and that I have something to contribute to it, I think, that no one else can. If you're in that fourth category and you're listening right now, hi, my name is Lindsey. Let's talk. I mean, boy, didn't that give off a have my people call your people vibe? But seriously, if you're interested, I'm easily accessible. But seriously, if you're interested, I'd be happy to talk professionally to you. One more thing before I let you guys go. I don't want this to be a one-way conversation. I've never wanted that with this podcast, and I especially don't want it with Project Princess. I want to hear from you. I want to know which Disney princess is your favorite and why. I want to know if there are specific things you want me to analyze in each deep dive. I want to know which I guess vocal performances blew you away, which songs changed how you thought about, I don't know, music in itself, which character moments stuck with you for years and years and years to come. Because I want to build something together right here. Because one of the things I believe deeply is that community changes outcomes. When people rally around a shared passion, doors open that wouldn't open for a person standing alone. That matters a whole lot, I think. So if this resonated with you, if something I said today made you think, yes, I want to follow this, then here's what I'm going to ask of you. Subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe and ring that bell because the algorithm rewards consistency and engagement. And I need you in my corner, please, pretty please, with a cherry on top. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, follow the show so you never miss another episode. Share this episode if you know someone who loves Disney, who geeks out over voice acting, who's a creative person chasing their own dream, who just likes hearing someone be, genuinely passionate about the craft or of storytelling in itself. Send them this episode. Word of mouth is everything. I've always believed that. And leave me a comment or a message. Tell me which princess you want me to cover first after Snow White. Although I am going in chronological order, so it may just have to wait. But, tell me which one you like. Tell me what you think. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me I'm not crazy enough. I want to hear all of it. And check out the links in my description box to get more info on my very own princess movie. Join our mailing list to stay up to date with all of the fun. Find me on social media, Instagram, TikTok, all the socials at Lindsey Rodriguez VO. That's LINDSEY RODRIGUEZ. V as in Victor, O as in Orange. Or at Lindsey's Colorful Voice. Drop into my DMs, tag me in your posts about your own creative dreams. Use the hashtag Project Princess so I can find you because I meant what I said. This is a community project. We're doing this together. And, who knows? Maybe there's another voice actress or actor listening to this right now who has their own dream. Maybe there's a singer who's been told, he or she will never make it. Maybe there's a writer with a screenplay in a drawer that they're too scared to show anyone. I want you here. I want you in this space because when one of us goes for it, it gives permission to all of us to go for it. That's the power of saying your dream out loud. It's pretty contagious. Here's my promise that I make to you for this series. I will be honest about the industry, about my journey, about the ugly parts of chasing a dream that most people would call unrealistic. I will be prepared. Every episode is going to be researched, thoughtful, and full of information you won't find anywhere else. I'm bringing my decade of industry experience to every single analysis. I will be consistent. 20 episodes, one series, all the way through. No quitting halfway because it got too hard or because the views weren't what I wanted, blah, blah, blah. And I will be myself, fully. Nerdy enthusiasm, singer's ear, martial artist discipline, and all that jazz. Because at the end of the day, that's all any of us can offer, the fullest version of ourselves, pointed in the direction of what we love over and over and over again until something breaks open. There is a little girl sitting on a carpet somewhere right now in this very moment, bare feet, pajamas, singing along to a Disney princess with her whole heart. And she's looking at the screen thinking, I want to do that one day. This series is for her. Or him, you never know. And it's for the grown woman or man who still carries that little child everywhere they go. That's me, and maybe that's you too. Thank you guys so much for being here for episode 1 of Project Princess. Next episode, we're starting at the very beginning with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, 1937. The film that Walt Disney bet his entire studio on, the film that every single person in Hollywood told him would fail. They literally called it Disney's Folly. They said no one would sit through a feature-length cartoon. They said it would bankrupt the studio. They were wrong. So wrong. It became the highest grossing film of 1938 and changed the entire entertainment industry forever. And the voice at the center of it all, a young girl named Adriana Castellotti, who was heard by chance through a door, who was paid $970 for the entire performance. I mean, that's a lot of money back then, but still. And who signed a contract that prevented her from using her voice professionally ever again. Her voice became the most famous voice in animation history, and she was silenced by it. That story alone is worth an episode. And trust me, we're going deep, diving in deep. You don't want to miss it. Oh, no, you don't. I'm Lindsey, an award-winning voice actress, singer, and songwriter, and black belt who moved to California with one dream and has spent the better part of 10 plus years building towards it. Proud of myself. This is Listen In With Lindsey, and this is Project Princess. The dream starts here. Let's go. Thank you guys again. We will talk soon. Bye.